Cartoscelli and Brenden Nunes. Brendan's running around. He'll be back. Brenden rocking a bunch of Ken Griffey Jr. gear. He's trying to get on my good side, so I don't know what that's all about. As we take you up to 2 p.m., there's Brenden right here. Brenden, I was saying you're trying to butter me up with all your Ken Griffey Jr. gear on. And Kyle has a Mariners hat on. Am I missing something?
I know, me and Brenden are twinning.
What?
Did I miss something here?
Lack of Yankee stuff is notable.
No one's talking.
Putting on for Doug Christie.
There you go. See, when we bring up the Yankees, you say, "Hey, don't talk about the Yankees." And then when we don't talk about the Yankees, you're like, "Why aren't you talking about the Yankees?"
We bring the ball.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what we do.
Uncalled for.
I went to Costco this past Sunday. I got 2 chicken bakes and a chocolate chip.
Did you eat them in one sitting?
No, I didn't.
Do you know how big those things are? Like,
no, I didn't. I actually had the second one yesterday, but Baby Styles was really feeling the chicken bake.
They're delicious.
She was housing the chicken bake.
They're honestly like a cheat code. They're so good, man.
There you go. Hey,
we bring the boom.
Yes, you do. And Frankie, you might have to leave at some point.
That's what we do.
Maybe. It seems like every single time I see somebody, they're just like, "You're still here?"
Yeah,
we're still waiting.
Waiting.
We're still waiting, but we have an appointment tomorrow that will probably, hopefully, should provide some clarity. But little baby Frank coming any day. So.
Yeah, just comfortable. Just hanging out. Paying rent. Not yet, but soon.
Very soon.
There you go.
I'm sure you're very accustomed to it. You've been not threatening. I guess you've been kind of threatening me for a long time about what's coming. So.
Yeah, and Baby Styles she was a week late, so it can get squirrely.
Our former boss Joe Giroux said the same thing about his son, and that is a horrifying thought because my wife is very much done with being pregnant. She's very over it. So
there you go.
Looking forward to taking care of a kid for the next forever.
Yeah. No, they don't go
forever.
For the next forever.
For the next forever. Well, we hope this win streak for the Kings, we hope this lasts forever, guys, but it's going to be tough against the Boston Celtics. Real quick, not to get too much in the weeds on the matchup, because it is just one game, but I do find it to be somewhat of a measuring stick. You don't get to play these teams very often, and it's going to be a crazy run for the Kings. I got to do some more homework on how the Bucks have been playing, but I know the Bulls, you truly don't know what you're going to get. So you get the Celtics, Bulls, and Bucks. As far as the matchups with the Celtics, we saw some numbers yesterday from Basketball Index that basically showed that the Kings have been, for lack of a better term, hiding DeMar DeRozan on defense. And the way I'm looking at it is if Al Horford is going to start tomorrow, even if De'Aaron plays, it's got to be a DeMar DeRozan cook fest, but we've seen DeMar DeRozan cook and keep other players involved. It's when things happen quickly, right? Don't hold the ball for too long. Guys get cold. Just make decisions quickly. Keep everybody moving. How are you feeling about the matchup with the Celtics tomorrow night?
Oh, you're setting me up here.
Why am I setting you up?
Because how is this ever going to be a good matchup for the Kings?
Yeah.
To be honest. They are.
I mean, you could find ways.
I like your DeMar on Al Horford thing. That makes a lot of sense.
And then they'll just sit Al Horford and bring in another 6'9".
Yeah, something like that. I think that you can probably go Keegan Murray on Jason Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you're doing with Jaylen Brown, or if you put Keegan on Jaylen, what you're doing with Jason. Like one of the two is what's your starting lineup going to be? Assuming De'Aaron Fox is there.
Yes. And that is a good question because we've been having conversations. I had this for a later segment, but it kind of rolls right into it. We've been having conversations about the starting lineup. So is there a world where a starting lineup can be more dynamic, where it's tomorrow night? Keon kind of makes more sense than Malik Monk because Keon can probably do a better job, especially when they switch everything. I mean, the Kings won that game, but it wasn't Austin Reeves bad, but they were getting Malik on Tyler Hero to end possession every possession in overtime. And Malik, he held his own, but Jaylen Brown's a different beast. Jason Tatum's a different beast. Is there an argument that this starting lineup should be more dynamic and Malik can be the starter in certain situations, but a day like tomorrow night, Keon actually makes more sense? Or down the line, Devin Carter might make more sense. Is that a crazy statement?
I mean, thinking about it, I don't really know many teams that shift starting lineups.
They don't.
Kind of go back and forth.
I think the Warriors do.
And Minnesota did a little bit with Naz Reid, but more so because of injuries at that point. But I mean, the Warriors maybe have a little bit. I wonder why you would know something like that, Allen. You should be kind of locked into Kings games more than Warriors games. But
They weren't playing. Okay.
But no, I do get the thought process.
Sorry, I was looking at the sack chat. Somebody said they saw me at Costco on Sunday.
Just
housing
housing chicken
fishing
bags.
some chicken
Just getting
bags.
after
This is
chicken
at
bags.
Costco in the Thomas. Yep, that was me.
It's like I knew it was you. Interesting conversation though. I mean, I personally don't really think so. I think that Doug and his staff will probably get together and probably meet with the players as well and kind of develop what that rotation is going to look like. I do feel like, I mean, I talked about it with Dave and Jason yesterday. I feel like if we're talking about balancing the roster out, and it might be an unpopular decision for some, there's really not a universal correct answer. I feel like Malik's just kind of more valuable back in that bench role. I think what Keon can provide you in that starting lineup with that starting group, it's not the same comparison.
No, I agree.
But you would make this move before they lose? You would do it tomorrow night?
I mean, it's getting healthy. It doesn't have to do with like the win streak.
Malik was starting while they were healthy.
So does that mean you're taking De'Aaron off the bench?
You just talked about how you're concerned
But
about.
they won games with De'Aaron when Keegan wasn't playing.
We just talked about how concerning it is the matchups, and now your first thought is to have your worst defensive player off the floor at the start of the game to put yourself on.
I'm just saying. I understand the matchup, but it's a winning streak. It would take some you know what to do that. And Doug's got him.
Keon has started multiple games with that winning streak as well. So is Malik. I get
it.
Granted.
So give me your starting lineup.
I mean, it's Fox, Keon, Keegan, DeRozan, Sabonis.
I would say the same thing. And like maybe vary DeMar to the bench instead of Malik if you want to entertain that conversation. I see why that's difficult.
All right, legend of winning.
Well, here's the thing. I think one of the biggest things about that whole Malik starting situation, a lot of it was involving Mike Brown. And I'm not sitting here and saying, well, Mike Brown was the reason why Malik, and Malik wasn't happy because of it. But Malik was pretty outspoken that he wanted to start. But he wouldn't push to start unless things went wrong. Right. And he didn't start to begin the season.
And they stunk.
The Kings were, the wins were sporadic. And it's worked out. Now they're at a point where things are really working, and the numbers speak for themselves with Keon on the floor. I mean, I don't know what his net rating is off the top of my head, but the team is, I think, double digits points better when he's on the floor.
Their best net rating is with Keon on the floor, and Domas is right behind him. But it's a big difference. I don't have all the lineup numbers in front of me.
So how does this conversation go? How does this conversation go with Malik?
It shows
Doug Christie. Both of you play Doug Christie right now. You go first, Brenden.
I'm Doug Christie talking to Malik here.
You're Doug Christie.
First of all, I love you.
Yeah, first of all, I believe in you.
I love you. I believe in you. I think you could be a star in this league, Malik. But what's best for this group, Manu Ginobili was better than Bruce Bowen.
Is Mike Brown?
Yeah. I might be going a little
Frankie,
Mike Brown.
Your turn.
No, I say the same thing. It's like this is about winning. This is bigger than the name on the back, which is the corny thing to say, but that's something Doug would say, by the way.
It is.
Name on the front.
The city will love you for this.
And it's not, I don't even look at it as a sacrifice. Malik Monk can put himself back in Sixth Man of the Year. That conversation.
You can play the same minutes.
I don't
play the same. It's not cooked. It's not cooked.
It is cooked.
If Nas Reed won it last year, it definitely is not cooked.
Peyton Pritchard, it says it's cooked.
Oh, that's where we're going. Okay, who's guarding Peyton Pritchard?
By the way, neither of you convinced me.
Buddy Hield said it's not over.
Well, yeah. Neither of you convinced me, by the way.
Okay, well then you tell us.
I disagree. They did pretty good, Doug Christie.
Give me your reasoning why you think Keon should come off the bench.
Keon should come off the bench because Malik Monk and what he brings offensively and what we've seen, the games where they were losing, okay? Malik Monk was still doing his thing. They were blowing it in certain spots. They weren't blowing it because Malik was starting the game. I mean, the Jaden Ivey thing, the Denver Nuggets thing, if you want to have a different conversation. So let's go this way. If Malik can't start, then why should he close either? Because I'm more okay just from a lack of a better term, drama perspective. I'm more okay with kind of what Mike Brown did with the quiet benching and the quiet quitting, where you just don't see Kevin Huerter again. You don't know where he went. So maybe if you want to close,
there is such a thing as reading and reacting as a coach, not just a player, to what is happening in front of you. And if you're starting one of those players and one of them is giving you more down the final stretch, that's who's closing.
But that's what I'm okay with.
But then why isn't the same way for starting?
Because all of the politics that comes with starting. I don't want to have that conversation with, you know what this is? You're just finally in a stable environment, right?
Are you?
You're in a yes. Yes, you
You
are.
just fired your coach like a week and a half ago.
You're on a 5-game winning streak.
A 25-point loss
The
to
vibes
Boston.
are. Let's not. Okay, no. Hold on now. Domantas Sabonis. Okay, what if Domantas Sabonis get asked, even while Mike Brown was still the coach? What did he say when the Malik Monk thing came up? What did he say? About time.
About time.
So now you want the team is part of this too, guys.
For sure. I think that's the most complicated aspect, and why I thought when Mike started Malik, like, that might be a button that you press and you can never undo.
Yeah.
And that is still part of the conversation. But I think that we're almost like talking separate of that. You know, assuming Malik is okay with it, which I think based on his previous actions, we have seen that he is.
Now, people like you got to ask Malik, how does it feel to get benched again?
Well, you know, I'm not asking that question.
Somebody's going to ask it.
But he is, from his mouth, he has said he will do what he needs to do to help the team win.
Yeah.
And the team was not winning. That's what warranted that change. And to your point, I get it. They have been, the success, a large part has been Malik Monk. He has been great in a starting role.
Mm-hmm.
But about maximizing everyone's value, I don't think you can get the most out of Keon in a bench role that you can with him in that starting group at the beginning of games.
Keon has a lot of offensive weaknesses, and I do think that those get covered up when you put him around 4 other great offensive players, and however you want to classify Keegan, but 4 other guys that make the game really simple for him. And I think Malik Monk is best with the ball in his hands, and I think that you see that more when he's not on the floor next to DeMar DeRozan.
I feel like I'm having
De'Aaron
flashbacks
Fox.
of last season. I cannot believe.
That's because it's the same team.
Kyle.
Oh, man.
Which Kyle?
Yeah, that was an accident.
If it's Draper, you're going to get in trouble here.
My bad.
All right.
Don't answer that question.
Let's get to break. Some fireworks already happening in here with the Sactown Sports Kings insiders. Brendan's forgetting who he's even talking to. That's how much is going on right now. When we return, did the guys hear the Sam Amick sound? I'm sure they did. How do they feel about De'Aaron Fox? Do they want to bench him too? Allen Stiles Show, Sactown Sports. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Waiting for it to drop. There we go.
Ooh.
Sactown Sports Kings insiders joining us. Frankie, Cartoscelli, Brenden, Nunes. Ridiculously hot first segment. We had Doug Christie impersonations. We had starting lineup conversations. And now it's going to stay hot on a Wasabi Thursday as we talk about
We bring the boom. That's what we do.
It's a jump scare at this point.
as we discuss what Sam Amick had to say on the morning show just a couple hours ago. You can check that out on YouTube during one of the breaks, of course. And Sam Amick, guys, essentially saying that he feels like the writing is on the wall. And everybody saw that picture with De'Aaron and Mike Brown. Just last night, Dave posted it. A bunch of people posted it. They were having dinner or something of the sort. So, are they still talking? Whatever the case may be, the Kings on a 5-game winning streak. De'Aaron hasn't played the last couple games with that hip contusion because of Triple J on the Grizzlies. And you have a situation where I felt better. I've been on these airwaves saying I felt better. Maybe I was a little short-sighted, just thinking that 5-game winning streak, the vibes are great. He's taking people up to the beat. He's taking the team up to the beam. Doug Christie is. This is awesome. And then Sam Amick says, I actually think it's going in the other direction. Not because of the winning streak, but he says, I actually think it's the writing is on the wall because of moving on from Mike Brown. Then we see a picture with De'Aaron and Mike Brown just last night. And then he ends the statement saying, essentially barring a second round visit, or dare I say a conference final, he doesn't think De'Aaron's mind will change. That really sobered me up a bit. I'll put it to you like that. What did you guys think?
I don't think it was super surprising to me. I think that's kind of already where I was at. De'Aaron made it pretty clear during the whole firing and the process afterwards, getting interviewed, the blunt statement of nothing's changed about what he said in the offseason of wanting continuity with this team, or they knew where I stood this offseason. And we know that he advocated for Mike Brown to eventually get that extension, which was not the smoothest process in the first place. So I don't think it's the most surprising. I do think we are somewhat dealing with the same situation that we were, though, when Mike Brown was here. It's still, this roster still has a chance to prove to De'Aaron, I think, that he should stick around, that they are trending in the right direction, but that was never going to be an easy thing to do, I don't think, with this current construction. And I think that's still the point that we're at. I think we were still, when Mike Brown was here, it was the same thing. Are you going to get to the second round? Is this going to feel like continual positive progress and that they are on an upward trajectory? I think is probably what De'Aaron wants to see. He wants to eventually be able to compete for championships, and this next contract's really going to be like the majority of his prime, probably his last big contract, not guaranteed, but more likely than not. So I don't think it changes too much. I think it probably makes De'Aaron a little like, this team is still being very impulsive and reactionary to these slight things. There's not that sense of continuity, obviously, that he said he appreciated before. So not too surprising. I think for the most part, it's where we were already at when Mike was here, to be honest. I just don't know. Maybe he needs a little bit more even now under Doug, but second round is still probably about the same difficulty.
Right.
Yeah, this is all still very fresh. I mean, this is what, December 27th this started happening, and they played the next day. They won their first game of the streak on December 30th. So, I mean, in short, the 5-game winning streak doesn't solve everything. I mean, there's still a whole another, half and plus of the season to go. So I think that the early returns on the decision from a basketball standpoint have been positive, obviously. I mean, winning solves everything. I think for Fox's situation, that also could ring true. If the Kings really do go on a run here, and the Western Conference is besides the first maybe 1-2 spots, it's wide open. I think they're 3 games back of the 4 or 3 seed right now. So all things being said, a lot of damage was done, but the Kings have shown that this roster, while there are still holes at the forward spots and the backup center spot specifically, they're close. And maybe De'Aaron does get encouraged by the fact that a core of him, Sabonis, Keegan, and Monk is able to push them back into that playoff discussion. And maybe if they do make a move, get a Cam Johnson or go get someone else that's kind of a head-turning move, and you kind of beef up the roster for not just the end of this year, but into next year as well, maybe that kind of, lowers some of the tension and kind of, when they come back to the table this summer, have a clearer conversation. But I do think that nothing has changed, like Brenden said, as far as they need to prove it this year. And the good news is they turned it around enough to not just bury themselves as early, but put themselves right back into the mix of the postseason race. And, a good road trip here, they can come back home, have another 3-game homestand where they've been playing very well. We could be looking at a team that's not just above 500, but maybe running towards the playoffs coming into the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm looking here real quick. The Kings are 2 games back of the 7 seed and 3 games back of the 5 seed. That's insane.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, the state of the West, it's volatile right now. The Kings are right in the mix. Phoenix has taken a nosedive. Look at the drastic difference between first half and second half for Golden State. You could say the same for Milwaukee. There's a handful of examples in the league. The 2 other things I'll add about De'Aaron is I think that the fact that Sacramento, that the organization itself has not had a press conference, I think affects the players maybe more than anybody. There is a sense of accountability where I think the front office needs to speak on their decision, but De'Aaron was left to answer a lot of the questions and take a lot of the crap for it.
Yeah.
And the whole narrative ended up being De'Aaron wanted this guy fired.
Right.
And he made it very clear in his statements, whether that's, through different methods, saying that this was not on me. And I would bet that he probably didn't appreciate the way that all that has been handled, which I think factors in. And the one other thing I'll say is I have heard that he does really like Doug Christie, though. As much as he did like Mike Brown, there is a level of De'Aaron likes Doug. And so not to say that couldn't be, a correct path moving forward for him. But again, like we said, I think things need to be proven before then.
I mean, if the front office comes out and says something, you don't have idiots.
It's too late now, though. De'Aaron already had to deal with all that.
Well, yeah, you don't have idiots like Allen Stiles saying, "Hey, was that a smirk?" Or what did he say after sleep? I mean, it's a great point. I haven't really talked about it too much on this show because I don't know how much fans care about it. When there was Podium Gate last season, and a lot of us were saying, "Why is Keon Ellis and guys that are barely playing talking? What did we see from fans? They don't owe you anything. Shut up, blah, 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 blah," all this stuff. So I kind of feel like fans might not care that much about it, but they should care about it, to your point, Brenden, because if the basketball world cares about it, the NBA as a business, they care about it. That is a bad look, okay? It's a bad look from the standpoint of Mike brought you from the depths of where. And that you went on this run, your evaluation is higher than it's ever been, and you do him dirty like this, you don't even come out to answer the questions. Now, Kings fans, they're going to rock with the Kings no matter what, and that's kind of how I've reacted to it. But to your point, De'Aaron, to your point, Brenden.
I'm Doug.
Yeah, you are Doug. Yeah, and we have Doug too over here.
And you're Kyle.
And I'm Kyle. Yeah, that's also true. To your point, Brenden, it's not really about how fans feel about it. It's about how De'Aaron feels about it. And if De'Aaron thinks that, and Sam Amick said the same thing, this is a bad look. This is not how you do business. It's not how you treat people. I do think it's a big deal. And it's something that I hadn't really thought about as far as how De'Aaron views how you're moving. Are you moving like an organization? The dude came from Kentucky when Kentucky was at its height. Are you moving like an elite organization? Are you moving like a machine that is well oiled? And the Kings, they haven't. They just haven't. That's the reality.
And the team that he was linked to the strongest is the San Antonio Spurs, who maybe have the most like consistent culture.
Yes.
Which I think again speaks to he values that, and obviously this year is not the only example. De'Aaron's been through a decent amount of turmoil in Sacramento.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess like the main thing here is what will give the idea that that's going to change going forward.
Right.
I mean, if the Kings do finish with 45, 46 wins and they make the second round, is that enough in your opinion to sign for the majority of your prime? I mean, I don't know. Again, money talks. I mean, if he's putting himself in position for a supermax, which right now, I mean, he's among the league leaders in points per game. I mean, he from a individual standpoint, he's been playing well
in the conversation.
Yeah, but it all depends on team results. Like they're not going to put a 40-win Kings team. They're not going to put him in first team All-NBA or second team, whatever down the line. But I think that kind of adds to the element of everything. And so one of the comments is even saying like they want to focus on the season, and that's really I think for everybody, all parties involved, the Kings, Fox, everybody. You really have to take one thing at a time. Like you have to focus on this year first and foremost, and without getting too much in the weeds. And we don't know what's going on fully behind the scenes. If the Kings would move off of Fox at the deadline, if there was a Godfather type offer, I would guess unlikely. I would get don't bring the trade machine out.
I'm not. I don't want to move off.
It's not time yet.
You got a smirk right when you said that.
Well, I just like the trade machine.
You just like those words.
That's right.
But I mean, in your words as well, they're getting cooking at just the right time.
Yeah.
Things were at rock bottom. Fox, even going out for a couple of games, the Kings in past years would just fall over flat. They come back and beat a couple of decent teams. And Miami is also in disarray right now. But in the manner they came back, 17 down, double overtime. So one thing at a time. Is there too much damage done to this relationship? I don't know. Maybe, but I'll continue to say it. Winning solves everything. If the Kings continue to win and make a good move at the deadline, it's only going to help your case. And then you go from there in the summer.
Being a good enough team to have him make all NBA and get that supermax is probably the strongest chance of keeping De'Aaron. I think just logically that makes sense.
And that's what we thought going into the season.
Right.
And then things just went a little bit squirrely. Get the bag. That's what he told Malik Monk. Speaking of what's realistic for the Kings, let's talk about it. Is the conference finals or are the conference finals realistic? Let's talk about it. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. Young, wild, and free. That's how the Kings have been playing, and we hope that continues. Allen Stiles here with Frankie Cartoscelli and Brenden Nunes, our Sactown Sports Kings insiders, doing a great job. First, guys, give us a little look into the Kings schedule. So when did they take off? Did they already take off?
Yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they took off after practice.
Yeah.
Which to my understanding is kind of the new way of Doug Christie, how he handles things. They wanted to get to Boston with enough time to kind of have some downtime and I
Have
don't
a nice meal.
Sure. Some chowder.
Some chowder.
Yeah. I don't know if essentially to have a practice, but I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot with Mike. I mean, 100% they're practicing probably the minute they get there, or maybe at least yesterday.
You think they're practicing less
Today.
under Doug Christie?
Guaranteed. That's probably one of the biggest differences outside of just like messaging under Doug. The biggest difference has to be how much they're practicing for sure.
So there was this whole thing, and this is what's so funny. And as the old saying goes, true words can be spoken in a joke. And this whole thing about Malik Monk he's the most outspoken person when it comes to this, or it seems like he was. You guys have been there, at all the practices. When he would joke about practices going long, when they would joke about how many practices they had. It seemed like Mike Brown was almost a diet Tom Thibodeau in a way in a lot of these situations. Does a lot the things or the whispers that we heard about the amount of time they were practicing. Do you think some of that was leaking in? Because most fans just sit and watch the game. And we watch the pregame and we watch the postgame. We see what these guys say. We hear the game plan. We hear this, we hear that. So then when this locker room stuff came up and every time they speak, it's simplifying. Okay, I didn't realize that it was viewed as complicated. And just, some of the playing together stuff. That whole practicing thing, was there more to that than maybe we all initially thought?
I would definitely say so. I don't think Malik's comments specifically, though, I will say. I think that to your point of like there's some truth in jokes sometimes. Not that Malik didn't notice it and maybe have some feelings, but I don't think that necessarily means he minded it. I think if you were really frustrated with it, you're probably not saying anything from his perspective, especially like with cameras in your face and everything. Yeah. I think they had a good relationship. I would say that there's been stuff about like how much Domas may appreciate the practicing. He gets beat up all the time,
and
plays a super physical game.
Yeah.
And even just the differences in under Luke Walton, it was walkthroughs instead of shoot-arounds, of we're not really going to go through everything here. Let's just walk through everything we got going on. Or having some of these Doug Christie practices be a little bit more optional, and things like that. So there's some fundamental differences there, but like heard things about Domas. DeMar DeRozan is, I'm forgetting how old off the top of my
35.
mind, but yeah, there's a lot of older teams in the NBA that hardly practice at all because of some things like that. So I think there definitely was an aspect of maybe some guys not loving how much they practiced, but I think that's a lot easier to be like, all right, I get why we're doing it when you win 48 games and you break the streak that, and Mike is trying to change a culture of an organization. I think the players were behind that. So I think it's one of those, like, even more so in hindsight, guys are appreciative that now it's toned down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like from that standpoint, it sounds like fatigue, really. Just maybe not fatigue as far as the guys are like completely, depleted and tired, but I think it's over time you get kind of worn down and you kind of go, man, I can use like a couple days off in a row. Like there's like this week, they had 3 days off during the week. And, I think pretty rare over the past few years, they get multiple off days, but this week they did. And obviously get a travel day in there as well. But, Mike comes from a different school of thought. We talked about it on our podcast that, he comes from the coaching tree of Greg Popovich. And I think he was with Larry Brown in Detroit for a little bit.
And we can get the podcast. You're talking about Return of the Roar.
Yes.
And that's on YouTube. Check that out. Sactown Sports 1140 YouTube and wherever you get your podcast.
Wow. That was
really
what a
nice.
guy. What a guy.
There you go. Continue, Frank.
No, but really, I think I think that it does the guys a little bit of good to have some time off your feet. And like Brenden mentioned, a lot of guys like Domas at the top of the list dealing with some physical things and, Keegan with his ankle, and he had to miss some games, which he said that benefited him greatly, and also missing out on some practice as well. So I do think that kind of shaking things up from that perspective has maybe rejuvenated the guys a little bit. But, I think that Mike still was in the right frame of mind to have the guys practice a lot. Cause like you mentioned, he was trying to shift the culture, trying to shift everything about an organization that's been at the bottom of the totem pole for years. So is it the right move to take a couple of days off here and there? Maybe, but it all depends on what's going on in the circumstances, and the winning helps. But
and I would say part of the circumstances this year that add to it is that you had multiple guys top 5 in minutes played. And when you're practicing that much with that combined, it's a little different.
Right. Something's got to give at some point. It reminds me, guys, because I know we all, even just going back to high school sports, it's after a winter break or after Easter break, summer, whatever it is, those practices are typically the hardest because, hey, you haven't been doing anything all summer long. Let's get you back in shape. But then once that evens out, you get back to some form of normalcy. It almost feels like Coach Mike Brown, he did the thing as if coming back from summer break was the over a decade where you didn't make the playoffs. So then you wanted to break those habits. Then after you broke that, there wasn't another, maybe we can rework this. It's no, we're going to continue to do this. And maybe that wasn't fully necessary.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's definitely some noticeable differences. And I think that it's just person to person. There's variances with just styles. And Doug does feel, even though ironically these guys are playing against each other in college and they're not that far off age-wise, it just feels more modern and more catered to the typical millennial, if you want to go in that direction of we're going to be free flowing. We love each other. And so it's just, I think, a difference stylistically, really.
So we're going to get to the trade generator.
What?
No, in the last segment. I saved it for you as a surprise. But honestly, I don't
Jordan Poole.
That's right. I don't want to miss this, guys, and forget to ask you tomorrow night against the Celtics. What do you actually think happens?
Why are you asking that?
I'm curious.
They're going to get smacked, Allen.
They're probably going to lose. And they're the best team in the league by a wide margin, in my opinion. I know that Cleveland and OKC what they've been doing is great. And Brenden, you have some deeply rooted Celtic blood.
Comment.
They are the best team in the NBA. They're on their home floor. We pulled up highlights on the podcast of the last time the Kings won a game there. There was no fans in attendance. It was right after COVID, right after the COVID season. I don't feel great about it from a matchup standpoint, but you know what? It's the NBA. Anything can happen on any given night. The Kings are playing a great brand of basketball right now. They're going to have possibly, we don't know about De'Aaron Fox fully yet. He was on the court yesterday going through a workout. It was a non-contact practice, so we don't know exactly what extent he participated. The injury report should come out in about 3 hours.
So it's not for sure that De'Aaron is playing.
Not for sure. We haven't had any full confirmation. I'd say it's likely.
Yeah, I'd say there's good odds.
I mean, if he's out there and the amount of work he was putting in with Luke Laux, I mean, it looked like he was in a good state. But if that happens, they'll be fully healthy for the first time all year. That has not happened yet. So we'll see what it looks like, and a lot of rotation questions, and kind of like we talked about, how different does that rotation look, and does that affect the flow of everything? I mean, because I agree with you that they have been playing great with Malik in a starting role and also with Keon in a starting role. And I think that moving even one of them out is going to disrupt things a little bit, but it's going to happen. De'Aaron Fox is going to start. So very intrigued to see how that goes. And, I don't think it's a great matchup, but that doesn't mean they can surprise some people.
Well, the Kings have been the part of the good matchup and still found ways to lose that game. So maybe they can benefit from the other side.
They lost that Charlotte game last year. I still think about that. I have to pull up the line. Maybe I will during the break. The Kings were fully healthy, and they played a Hornets team that was missing, I think, their entire starting five, except for PJ Washington, I think.
Yeah, that might have been the PJ game.
I'll pull it up.
The Celtics shoot like 50 plus threes, and the Kings are very bad at defending the three for most of this season. And the Kings don't shoot that many threes themselves relative to the rest of the league. It seems like Christie's trying to get them closer to that 40 per game number, while Mike Brown was hovering around 35 this year. The Kings have to hit a lot of their threes if they're going to be in this game, in my mind, or the Celtics go cold. But I think that you better hope that, guys like Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter are hitting their threes. You're going to need like Trey Lyles to do something for you. I think that you got to have a really good night from three to keep up with this team.
What about running them off the line? They just won't do it, huh?
That's just not their scheme.
Yeah.
They protect the rim as a team because they don't have a typical rim protector. Obviously, Domas is not his strength. And so when you have all these guys on the weak side of the floor worried about protecting the rim, it's going to leave those threes open. It's just kind of what their scheme has been for a while, and it doesn't look changed under Doug.
One more segment with the guys. What moves do they want to make for your Sacramento Kings? Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. One more segment with the guys. Frankie and Brenden. Frankie Cartoscelli, Brenden Nunes. Talking about possible moves here. Guys, and I've been very honest on this show. I'm so tired of talking about Cam Johnson. I'm sick of it. And I'm the trade guy. I'm not saying I don't want the Kings to make a move, but
hold on. You're the trade guy from the standpoint of your trades are atrocious.
I'm tired of Cam Johnson. We need more Marquise Morris.
Marcus Morris.
Pool party.
I'm just saying. You look, Valanciunas and pool party, or Kyle Kuzma and pool party.
Valanciunas would help the Kings. I don't think they need Jordan Poole if they have Malik Monk on this roster.
That's fair. See, I'm a fair guy.
Super fair guy.
I'm a fair guy. Speaking of the Wizards and how they don't know what they're doing.
No.
Jake Weinbach says if the Kings are unable to secure a deal for Cam Johnson, expect Sacramento to shift its focus to Old Faithful. Kyle Kuzma. The Kings are currently riding a 5-game win streak and are reportedly shopping a package of Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and draft compensation to upgrade its wing depth. And I'm also tired about talking about Kyle Kuzma.
I mean, You better get used to hearing it because we're in the end game now. We have less than a month to go until the trade deadline, and I think there's a super high chance they do get a wing. I don't know if it's gonna be Cam Johnson or Kuzma. Maybe it's someone we haven't heard of before, but I think they have to do something, and maybe it's predictable, maybe it's not, but the pressure's too there. It's so much pressure right now, and there's fire. I know there's a lot of smoke, and even Sam this morning, who's super plugged in, said that they're in like a million different directions trying to kind of open every door. And I don't think that your doors that you want to be open will necessarily
My doors.
Yes.
I don't have doors.
Jordan Poole.
No doors?
No doors for me. I just want this team to get better. And if you watch Jordan Poole cook,
Stop it.
It'd be it's very hard for me to believe you want the team to get better when I see the trades that you're showing us at the media dining room table.
guys, Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, whatever deal for Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, that is a good deal.
What? Are you the same one that showed us the Jonas or the Zion Williamson for Demonis Sabonis trade?
No, don't do the Whitey. I didn't.
Okay.
That's
It wasn't Whitey. It wasn't Whitey.
No, I'm not saying Whitey, but Whitey will say stuff I did not say.
Okay.
You had some kind of Sabonis deal cooked up, and I think everyone was like, that guy's crazy.
No, Sabonis untouchable to me.
No,
That was the
I
one
remember
that they
who it
made
was
fun of
now.
you of at
Who was
the
it?
media room.
It was, I'll tell you later. I don't want to out him.
Well,
I don't wanna, it's
so
the
I'm-
classic No Moscow.
I'm getting outed.
No Moscow.
Why am I getting outed? I don't want to get outed.
Well, you never know. I mean, you're a good. If we can't remember who the crazy trade came from, it was probably Allen Stiles.
It's easy to go back to the source.
Okay, but seriously now.
Have you looked at what Kuzma's shooting from three this year?
No. I think the Wizards, they blew it. Okay. They should have
They
moved
did.
Kuzma last season. This is why I do think Cam Johnson, with that ankle injury, I do think he gets moved. I know we're in a bit of a stalemate because of the hey, you don't want to give up Devin Carter, and the reports are it's what we did it yesterday. It was you could do Kevin Huerter, Devin Carter, and I think one more. Not Trey. You could keep Trey Lyles in this deal for Cam Johnson, or you do. I think it's Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and two picks if you wanted to keep Kevin Huerter. Sounds like the Kings don't want to do either. But guys, if you're looking at the Nets have been pretty lucky here. You had Dennis Schroeder, who's completely turned into a pumpkin with the Warriors. He was balling out of control, right? Dorian Finney-Smith was shooting the three ball higher than he ever had in his career, and you have Cam Johnson balling out. They probably look at this, and they move two of their guys that they wanted to move. They probably look at Cam Johnson, and they say, do we want to be greedy and Cam cools off or isn't the same after the ankle? That's why, and you're looking at what happened with Kyle Kuzma on the Wizards. That's why I do think that he's going to get moved. It's just a matter of time. Well,
and it's about how much. And
yeah.
I think the rumor of 2 first-round picks or a first-round pick and a young player, like maybe they do want that, but I've long thought that that's not going to happen. Even Sam today said that he thinks that unprotected first-round pick is probably going to be what gets it done for a team. And you have to kind of look at it and say who has the more valuable prospect there as far as like who's going to be in a better spot come draft time. And that might be where Brooklyn decides to go. And the scary thing to me is, kind of waiting in the weeds is OKC. They can literally get anyone they want right now. They have so many first-round picks. I think they have too many first-round picks, and they're allowed to even have for this upcoming draft. So they kind of have to do something. So I'm looking at them as a team for maybe the prize of trade season, and they're not super like linked or involved, but we'll see what they can do with those picks. But the John Collins, Kyle Kuzmas of the world, the Kings will probably end up with someone of that caliber. They kind of have to, right?
Yeah, at least the John Collins. I know you're dealing with Danny Ainge, but at least the John Collins thing, most people believe he's a little bit overpaid. So maybe that deal isn't. You don't have to give up that much because you're gonna have to pay him, but you don't have to give up that much as far as asset wise outside of matching the money. Because all right, we know he's making a little bit more than he should, so here you go. I don't know if Danny Ainge would do that, but I don't think we're looking at any first rounders for John Collins because of how much he's getting paid.
Yeah, it's probably a couple seconds, but the Kings are obviously in a tough position with that, as we've talked about before. I think they have 2 seconds available to them.
Those went overseas with Sasha.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So they're in a tough spot when it comes to what their flexibility can be. The Cam Johnson situation, it's what are they willing to give up, and are they going to get outpriced by somebody else? It makes sense for Brooklyn to obviously be selling off these guys a little bit earlier while they're trying to maintain, optimize their ping pong balls, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
But I think that if the Kings were first of all, if they were willing to include Devin Carter in a deal, I think this would already be done.
Mhm.
So I don't think that we're at that point. Maybe that will change. But 2 unprotected firsts, for example, like that's a whole lot for Cam Johnson. So if we
No, I
are
mean, that's
talking one,
insane.
it's insane.
Even Kevin O'Connor, who covers the NBA and is never, doesn't typically speak very highly of the Sacramento Kings. He said he wouldn't move Devin Carter, and he said he would not do 2 firsts for Cam Johnson. He
Yeah.
said he wouldn't move Devin Carter for Cam Johnson. Said he wouldn't do 2 firsts for Cam Johnson.
Yeah, I think it's a little too much, but the Kings are also in a tough spot. Everything we talked about with De'Aaron, maybe they're just ready to move on when it comes to this offseason. But if you're in a desperate spot kind of right now,
Mhm.
and obviously you never want your back against the wall. You never want to be trying to make moves from a position of weakness, but that's kind of the reality of where they're at right now.
Some quick hitters, guys, before we get you out of here. Thanks for the time. Devin Carter, what you've seen from him so far. I know there's not enough time to break that down, but do you feel now it could be based on the player, of course, but a lot of people, they've seen enough to say that we can't move Devin Carter. And I don't want to be a hater, but I don't feel that yet. I don't feel like you can't move Devin Carter yet. But again, I want De'Aaron Fox to stay, so maybe that's part of it.
I mean, just seeing how the league's unfolded, really, I don't think there should really be anyone that's super untouchable. Not to quote George Karl,
Yeah.
but like there really shouldn't be anyone that's all the way untouchable if the deal is right. And Devin Carter is someone who definitely has a lot of promise, but if there is a kind of deal out there, and I'm not going to say Cam Johnson's the one, to me, it's not quite Cam Johnson in a first. That'd be kind of steep in my opinion.
Yeah.
But maybe there's another player that we don't know about that is available and that's being discussed. And it's someone that's kind of, more of a not quite all-star player, but near all-star type player. Maybe a little above Cam Johnson, but I don't know, man. I'm not really ready to say that a player who's played 3 games is untouchable.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who it could be. Even like the Pistons aren't giving up Cade Cunningham right now, but like if a Cade became available, for example, then sure, like Devin's not untouchable. I think Devin's far from the untouchable label. I agree with Frank. I don't think anybody on the roster is untouchable, including De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk. But it's the right deal. And I think that Cam is not a good enough player probably to just move on from your lottery pick that a lot of guys thought were probably going to be a top 5 guy. He slipped a lot because of the injury. My understanding, I think that he may have had a promise a little bit earlier in the lottery and that the teams afterwards maybe didn't get the proper research on his injury, so fell a little bit more. There's a good reason for optimism with him and his future, I think. So not untouchable, especially coming from a front office that traded Tyrese Halliburton when he looked probably closer to that than Devin Carter obviously ever has up to this point, playing 3 games in his career. But it'd have to be the right guy, and I don't think Cam is that guy.
Real quick, I know we're up against it, but I just remembered, if I'm not mistaken, OKC, this guy tore his ACL, but if they wanted to make that Cam Johnson move, what is it, Nikola Topic?
Topic, what are we talking about?
He just got drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, to OKC.
Yeah.
He could be moved to the Nets. Could take him. I mean, he's a rookie who hasn't played.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Nikola Topic.
Totally forgot that he's on OKC.
Right,
too.
and
He
he's
was
like
picked
6
ahead of Devin Carter.
Yes, 6'8", 6'9"
I'm telling
type
you,
guy.
OKC can get whoever they want.
Yeah,
man.
and he has not played a game yet. The Nets could like what they saw.
He looked interesting.
He did. He definitely looked interesting. All right, guys, we got about 30 seconds here. How do the Kings fare on this 3-game road trip?
I mean, easy answer, I guess, is 2-1, or the hopeful answer is 2-1. But
somebody do it.
That means you got to beat one of Boston or Milwaukee. But I mean, I'm looking at Milwaukee, a team that should be beatable, and I'm thinking that Chicago should hopefully go in the Kings' favor. So I'm looking at 2-1.
Chris Middleton just got moved to the Pine, like you guys want to do with Malik Monk. Brenden, what were you going to say?
1-2. I'm a little worried about 0-3 though. Chicago has their okay moments. Levine could totally get rolling. Lonzo's the type of guy that could pick you apart. He's been playing again recently. CP3 absolutely tore them apart. Cade Cunningham tore their defense apart, so a little worried, but I'd probably say 1-2 with that Chicago game.
I'm going 2-1 like Frankie. I want to go 3-0, but I don't got it in me. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Frankie Cartoscelli might be a father the next time that we have him on. Frankie Cartoscelli, Brenden Nunes, thank you as always.
Will not be a father.
You don't know that. You don't know that. Hey, all right, thanks, guys. Sactown Sports Kings Insider. More Allen Stiles Show when we return. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.